Morning everybody, hope you're all okay. Well done for your end of unit work yesterday. We are now ready to start a new topic. So before we get started, here is our Fab 4 for today. Now we're going to be having a look at some mixed skills this morning. So a bit of takeaway, division, big math and long multiplication. So give yourself 4 minutes, pause your screen and then come back. All right, now some of these questions I've popped up because they're common ones that people seem to make a mistake with. Now the first one, 10 take away 6.3, hopefully what you will have remembered is that you need to line up your sixes and your zeros here, and you need to give the 10 a placeholder in order for you to be able to calculate. All right, I'm not going to go through it all, but just in case you get these wrong, you'll be able to see maybe it might be your alignment that's wrong. So for number one, you should have had an answer of 3.7. Number two, remember when you're dividing by 10, 100 or 1,000, you should be using your place value grid. So you'll be using your tens, ones, your tenths, hundredths, thousandths column. And if you're dividing by 1,000, you will have popped your 2.8 in here. And hopefully we'll remember you're dividing by 1,000. There are 3 zeros. So everything needs to move one place smaller to give you an answer of 0.0028. Now for number 3, our big maths question, obviously our most important is to think what's the order. So indices here, or operation if you called it BODMAS. This is 4 squared, so that gives us an answer of 16. And then obviously the next most important is our division. 35 divided by 5 is 7. And then we need to add those together to give us an answer of 23. Now for the final one, number 4, hopefully you will have set out a really nice clear grid method for multiplication, and you will have got a final answer of 13,696. Okay, now our new unit, we are going to be learning about percentages this week or so. Now we're going to be doing lots of different ways of looking at how to calculate them, using bar models, using all sorts of ways to visualize our percentages. We're going to use lots of different vocabulary, some of which that you'll notice we've used before: equivalent fractions, compare, order, less than, greater than, because they all link very closely to the previous unit on decimals and fractions. Now here gives some examples of the bar models we might be using, as well as the number lines to show how all these different types relate to each other. Okay, so let's crack on with our Discover. Now, Mr. Jones and Sophia here, they're doing some painting, and they've got, you can see, these are all easels, which is holding each piece of art with all the circles on it. Now, each easel has got 100 circles, and Mr. Jones is asking Sophia to paint 50% of the circles yellow and 25% of the circles blue. Now, my first question to you is, what actually does the word percent mean? Now, I want you to remember this really carefully, that the word per means out of, okay? And cent means 100. So percent actually means out of 100. That's the most important thing about percentages, because if you can relate everything that you're trying to calculate to being out of 100, it's really going to help, okay? So let's have a look at the first question. It's now saying, how many circles should Sophia paint yellow? Now she's got to paint 50% of the circles yellow. So here are our easels. Now, like we've just said, 50%. Now we've just found out that percent means out of, and that fraction line there can mean out of as well, out of 100. So 50% is actually the same as saying 50 out of 100. Now we can show that really easily, can't we, on here, because each of our easel contains 100 circles. So 50 out of 100, we would count down by 5, okay, and we would go along by the 10. And this amount here is going to show us that's how many I need to shade on that easel, 50 out of the 100. And I would do the same on every single easel. So on each one, I'm not doing them all individually because I think I'll be here all day. I'm just going to go around them in like a rectangle shape. So there's another 50, and then I would need to do 50 out of this 100 here, like so, and then the same for the last easel. Okay, now so that is showing 50% of the easels. Now sometimes that might be put in a numerical, in a number form. Now if there's 100 circles on each of our easels, we might be asked to think about, well, how many circles are shaded in total of all of these? Now, in total, if there's 100 on each, 100, 200, 300, 400, that means altogether we have got 400 circles, okay? Now, if we have now shaded in 50% of that, that means on this board we had 50, and then there was another 50, so let's just do the total. So now we would be up to 100. This one, another 50, 150, and on this one, now we're up to 200 circles. So 50% of 400 equals 200. Do you also see now the relationship that we learned before, that 50 out of 100 is the same as 1/2, isn't it? So 50% is the same as calculating half of an amount. Now, because we know that there's 400, 1/2 of 400 has given us 200 in total. Now let's have a look at the next one, where it's saying we want to work out what 25% are blue. Now it's actually asking us to show two different ways that we could paint the blue circles. Now let's just think to ourselves for a minute. 25% is the same as 25 out of 100, isn't it? So on the first case that we're doing it, we want to shade in 25 out of each of these 100. All right, so that would be all of those inside that square there, and it would be the same on every single easel that I'm shading in. Okay, so this means by me doing this, obviously if Sophia were doing this, she'd be doing every different dot, and she would be painting every single dot in blue. Okay, now 25% is 25 over 100. Now we learned this in a fraction, didn't we? That we know that 25 over 100 is the same as 1/4. So we're actually now working out what is 1/4 of 400. Okay, now 1/4 of 400 is the same as saying what is 400 divided by 4, which we know will be 100, won't it? And actually, if we count here, we've shaded excuse me, 25 on this one, and then the total would be then 50 on this one, and then we'd move to the next easel, another 25 would be 75, and then finally another 25 would take us to 100. So 1/4 of 400 is 100. Now what's another way of showing this then? Well, actually one easel shows 100, so we could have just shaded all of the 100 of one easel and then left all of the others blank, and that would be 1/4 of 400 as well. So do you see there's two different ways that we could represent that there? All right, so 300 people visit the fair. All right, now it says 50% win a toffee apple, 25% win a balloon, and 10% win a teddy. Now we want to know what this means as number of people. So how many people win each prize? So we're first of all going to focus on 50% of 300. Now we now know for sure that 50% is the same as 50. Sorry, I've done too many there. Doesn't it? Let me just get rid of that. Here, I mean 50, don't I? That's me getting carried away with my zeros and my pen. So I've got 50 out of 100, okay, which is the same as 1/2. So I can either think, right, I'm going to shade half of each of these, yeah, so I could shade half, 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 and that would tell me how many. Now, half of 100 or 50 out of 100 or 50% is the same as 50. So it would be 50, 100, 150 people. So 50% of 300 is the same as 150. So 150 people, 1 toffee apple. Now that means you can think about it just by thinking, well, 50% is half, let's just half 300. If you struggle to half larger numbers, you can use then the diagrams to shade 50 out of 100 on each one, and then you will get to your final answer. All right, now, so on our next question, we're now looking at how many people won a balloon. Now we're looking at 25% this time. Now we know that 25% is the same as 1/4, or 25 out of 100, isn't it? Now we could then go through and we could shade in each of these just 1/4 of the square of 100. Okay, now that would give us an accurate number, and it would help us to decide what 1/4 of 300 is, because this shows 25. This shows another 25, which would take us to 50, and this shows another 25, which would take us to 75. So that means that 25% of 300 is 75. So 75 people win a balloon. The other way that you could do it, if you want to do it as a whole, is you could think, well, what's 300 divided by 4? Because that's how we would work out a quarter. And you would get the same answer of 75. All right, because 25% is the same as a quarter. Now then, this one now, 10% of 300. Now 10% is one which helps us work out all other percentages. Now, there's two different ways of looking at it. I always think, well, if I need 10%, I just divide by 10, because that's going to tell me the answer. And the reasoning behind that is that 10% is the same as 10 out of 100, which is the same as 1/10. So you're dividing by 100 to find out what a tenth is. So it on a picture, that would think, well, 1/10 would be one column, or you could have done a row as well, on each of the blocks, and you would shade in 10 on each. So I could do that here, another 10, and I could do that here with another 10. So 300 divided by 10, well, we've all been doing lots of dividing by tens and hundreds, so that will give us an answer of 30. So 30 people win a teddy. All right, this is a really important one to remember how to calculate 10%. Just divide by 10. Okay, simple. Now let's have a look here. Copy the grid. Shade 50% yellow, 25% red, and 10% blue. It might be worth you pausing the video here if you want to have a go at this and then see if you're getting the answer correct. Now, if we are looking at this, and we're thinking about, right, we've got a picture with squares that obviously there aren't 100 there. The most important thing with these sorts of questions, the first job you must do is count how many it's divided into. Now this has got 5 down one side and 4 across, so there must be inside here, we know that there are 20 squares. Now that's really important because we need that information to work out 50%. So 50% we know is the same as half. So what's half of 20? It's 10. So we must shade 50% in yellow. That means 10 squares need to be yellow. Now I'm going to show you, in case you haven't got colours at home, I'm just going to do it like this, Y for yellow. So that means I know 50% of 20 is saying 10 squares have got to be yellow. Okay. Now the next one is saying 25% are red. Now 25% is a quarter, so we could divide 20 by 4, or we could use the knowledge in that we know that 25%, which we can see on this diagram, is half of 50%. So for 50% we shaded 10, so for 25% we're going to shade in 5. All right, so that means we've got to have 5 of them which are red, because 1/4 is a half of a half. All right. Now remember what I just told you, 10%, just divide by 10. What am I dividing by 10? I'm dividing by 20 because that's how many squares I've got. 20 divided by 10 is 2, which means that 2 of the squares need to be blue. And obviously the remaining ones are just going to be left white. So when you've got a question like this in your Power Maths books, and the most important thing is that you do this calculation here of how many it's divided into before you can calculate your percentages. Now, I wanted to show you this because this is also in your books today. Now, you'll see this when you go into the shops, that you can get percentages off. Sometimes it's 50% off all the clothes. Here we've bought, there's a scarf that's on sale for £10, and actually it's got 10% off today. Now, I want to now know, how much does the scarf cost now? So that means once we have taken 10% off. Now, I can't take 10% off until I know what is 10% of £10. Now, we've just said if we're working out 10% of something, that we need to do £10 divided by 10, which will give us an answer of £1. So 10% of £10 is £1. But that doesn't tell me how much the scarf costs now. That tells me how much is being taken off in this discount sale. So if originally the scarf was costing £10, 10% of £10 was £1, I've got to take that away to tell me how much the scarf now costs. So 10 take away 1 gives me an answer of £9. So once we've taken 10% off, the new value of the scarf is £10. Do you see how that's 2 steps? So my first step is, what is 10% of the £10? And I found out that was £1. Now, what does that tell me that the scarf costs now? So I go back to my original price, I take off my 10%, and that's going to give me my final answer here of £9. That is the new cost of the scarf. Let's have a go with a different amount. So now the scarf costs £12. This time they're taking 25% off. Now I'm going to think in my head, right, I know that 25% is a quarter. So how much does the scarf cost now? Well, step 1 was, well, what is 25% or a quarter of £12? Well, I'm going to do 12 divided by 4 because I know that's how I calculate a quarter. I divide it by 4. And that gives me an answer of £3. So that's how much is being taken off. That's the discount. So for step 2, before I can decide my final answer, I'm thinking, well, my scarf originally cost £12. It's had 25% off in the sale, and I know that 25% of £12 is 3. So I'm going to take that away, and that's going to leave me, it was the same as the previous one. The scarf now costs £9. So 25% off of £12 leaves me with 9. Okay, so a lot to take in today because this is a new topic. Some of you might be really comfortable with percentages and happy just to go whiz through. If this is still quite new learning, focus on questions 1 and 2 and get your head around those first. And then if you can, tackle the following questions up to question 5, all right? If you get stuck along the way, please send me a message and I can give you some guidance and some help. But I think if you work through this methodically and you need to go back, I've tried to do the video so it's going through the Power Maths book. Go back and watch it and then have a go at answering. And obviously, if you've got any problems, then please just send me a message and I'll give you some help. All right, good luck and have a lovely day. And I will see you all tomorrow.